Could Ghana's new president, John Mahama, be the leader who finally flips the script on Africa's global narrative? His rise to power isn't just a win for Ghana, it's a moment that could ripple across Africa, shaking up how the continent is viewed on the global stage. For years, Africa has often been seen as a passive player, with its decisions shaped by outside forces, especially from the West. But with Mahama's leadership, a new chapter may be unfolding, one that pushes back against decades of external influence and prioritizes African needs. So what makes Mahama stand out? What is he doing differently? For starters, he's made a bold move by calling for the removal of US troops stationed in Ghana. This isn't just about reducing foreign military presence, it's about reclaiming control. His stance reflects a growing wave of sentiment across Africa, the desire for sovereignty and a redefined relationship with powerful nations. This isn't just a fight over military bases, it's about shedding the remnants of colonial-era control. For years, African countries have hosted foreign troops, often under the promise of stability and security. Yet these arrangements have sometimes eroded trust, weakened self-reliance, and sent the message that Africa can't handle its own challenges. Mahama's decision taps into the spirit of Pan-Africanism, a vision of unity and independence for the continent. By asking US troops to leave, he's saying Ghana, and Africa as a whole, is ready to tackle its own issues and steer its own course. This move aligns with the ideals of Ghana's own history. Leaders like Queen Nkrumah once fought for a continent free from external domination, where Africa's wealth could benefit its own people. Mahama's stance echoes that dream, reminding the world that Africa's resources should build its future, not serve the agendas of foreign nations. Foreign military bases might seem like symbols of protection, but they often come at a hidden cost. They can create dependence, stir up geopolitical tensions, and clash with the aspirations of local communities. By calling for their removal, Mahama is pushing for a continent that can stand tall on its own terms, one that's no longer a pawn in the global power game. This isn't just about Ghana, it's about a larger awakening across Africa. Leaders and citizens alike are questioning the long-standing narratives that have justified foreign involvement. They're demanding respect, fairness, and a voice in shaping a new, more balanced world order. Africa's story is shifting, and Mahama's leadership is part of that transformation. John Mahama's vision feels like a breath of fresh air, a bold statement that Africa is ready to take charge of its own destiny. His call isn't just for Ghana, it's a rallying cry for every African nation to step up, stand tall, and demand a future free from external control. For too long, Ghana, like many African nations, has been stuck in a cycle of borrowing and dependence. Foreign loans and aid have often come with strings attached, pulling the country into a web of obligations that serve outsiders more than the people at home. But Mahama has drawn a line in the sand. He's saying enough is enough. It's time to rewrite the script. His victory isn't just about winning an election, it's about reclaiming Ghana's identity. At the heart of his campaign was a vision of economic freedom, a promise to break away from the systems that have kept the nation tethered to outside interests. Mahama isn't interested in quick fixes or temporary solutions. He's got his eyes on the long game, building a strong, self-sufficient economy driven by Ghanaians for the benefit of Ghanaians. Over the next 4 years, Mahama plans to turn that vision into reality. He's laid out an ambitious roadmap that starts with tackling the root causes of dependency. For him, it's not just about survival, it's about creating a thriving Ghana that can stand proudly on its own. He's focusing on boosting local industries to keep money flowing within the country. By investing in agriculture, he's aiming for food security, so Ghana isn't reliant on imports to feed its people. Infrastructure and technology are also high on his list, modernizing systems and creating jobs to empower communities. And at the center of it all is education, because Mahama knows that a well-educated, skilled population is the key to unlocking the nation's potential. But this isn't just about Ghana. Mahama's leadership is sending ripples across the continent. His approach challenges the narrative that African nations must rely on foreign powers to succeed. Instead, he's championing the idea of self-reliance and local solutions, lighting a path for others to follow. What makes Mahama's plan even more powerful is his focus on unity, not just within Ghana, but across Africa. He's calling for regional cooperation, encouraging countries to work together to resist outside pressures and build a future that reflects their shared dreams. Mahama understands that real independence isn't a solo journey. It's about standing together, lifting each other up, and refusing to be divided by the forces that have profited from Africa's disunity for generations. This path won't be easy. Ghana's economy has been battered, and years of poor management and foreign influence have left deep wounds. But Mahama is undeterred. He's determined to prove that Ghana and Africa can chart a new course, one that isn't defined by dependency, but by strength, resilience, and innovation. What's happening under Mahama's leadership is more than a national effort. It's a movement. It's a reminder to the world that Africa is no longer content to sit on the sidelines, watching others dictate its fate. Instead, it's stepping forward, reclaiming its wealth, its dignity, and its voice. If you are still watching this video, it means you love it. Why not take out a second and hit that like button? Have you done that? Let us move on. Building something bigger than a single nation's success, a vision that unites and empowers an entire continent, is the kind of bold mission that inspires change. Ghana, with its rich history and determined leadership, is stepping up as a key player in this transformative journey. And the best part? It's not doing it alone. For decades, African nations have dreamed of a future where they are free from the shadow of foreign control. Ghana, alongside countries like Burkina Faso and Mali, is turning that dream into action. This isn't just about political speeches or economic policies. It's about rewriting the rules and creating a new chapter for Africa, one built on unity and self-reliance. John Mahama has emerged as a key figure in this story. His message is simple. Africa cannot depend on the West to solve its problems or secure its future. Instead, he's calling for African nations to work together, to build stronger bonds, and to take charge of their destiny. It's not just talk either. Mahama is leading by example, showing that real change comes from within. Take Ghana's decision to shut down US military installations as an example. For years, these bases operated under the pretense of providing stability and security. But for many in Ghana and across Africa, they symbolize something else: foreign influence and control. So when Ghana decided to close them, it wasn't just a policy shift. It was a bold statement. Africa is ready to take responsibility for its own security. This move didn't come out of nowhere. It's part of a larger wave of resistance spreading across the continent. Countries like Mali and Burkina Faso are standing shoulder to shoulder with Ghana, rejecting old systems that once kept them dependent and vulnerable. Whether it's pushing back against military dominance or challenging economic structures like the CFA franc, these nations are sending a powerful message. Africa's future is not for outsiders to decide. What's remarkable is how this resistance is fueling cooperation among African nations. Instead of relying on Western powers for solutions, countries are coming together to address their challenges. The focus is shifting to African-led initiatives, from security to economic development. This spirit of solidarity is a game changer, signaling a new era where success in one country can spark progress across the continent. Ghana's role in this movement goes beyond its borders. By championing the cause of independence and self-reliance, it's becoming a leader in the push for collective action. Mahama's leadership isn't just about fixing Ghana's problems. It's about creating a ripple effect that inspires other nations to join the fight for true sovereignty. Across Africa, there's a growing sense of pride and determination. The idea of being a pawn in someone else's game is being replaced by a vision of strength and self-determination. And as Ghana and its allies continue to challenge the old ways, they're proving that change is possible when nations stand together. A new chapter is unfolding in Africa, one where nations like Ghana, Burkina Faso, and Mali are no longer content to follow a script written by others. These countries are stepping into the spotlight, united by a shared mission to reclaim their independence and rewrite the continent's narrative. For too long, the world has clung to a tired and false image of Africa, a land defined by poverty and chaos, painted as helpless and dependent. This skewed story served a purpose: to justify decades of exploitation by foreign powers. But now, Africa is pushing back, showcasing its wealth of resources, culture, and potential. This wave of change is fueled by leaders who refuse to be bound by the chains of neocolonialism. They are challenging outdated systems, where secretive deals and external pressures have long shaped Africa's trajectory to the benefit of outsiders. Take Ghana, for example. Under John Mahama's leadership, Ghana has closed foreign military bases that once symbolized outside control over its security. This wasn't an isolated act, but part of a broader movement sweeping across the continent. Countries like Burkina Faso and Mali have joined the cause, rejecting external interference and forging new alliances that prioritize African interests. This isn't just about politics or military decisions. It's a bold step toward reclaiming Africa's future. Leaders are redefining how the continent engages with the world, not as a source of cheap resources or a recipient of pity, but as a partner demanding fairness and respect. For decades, Africa's treasures, gold, oil, diamonds, and rare minerals, have fueled the global economy while leaving its people behind. Western powers built their wealth on the backs of African resources, all while perpetuating harmful narratives about the continent's inability to govern itself. But now, a new generation of leaders is saying, no more. One of the clearest examples of this resistance is the fight against the CFA franc, a colonial-era currency still controlled by France, which stifles economic freedom in 14 African nations. Visionary leaders like Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso and Assimi Goïta of Mali are advocating for financial systems that put African interests first. Their focus is clear: reinvest Africa's wealth back into its people, industries, and infrastructure. Africa's resources remain central to the world's future, from the cobalt and lithium that power modern technology to its agricultural and energy potential. Yet the difference now is that African nations are asserting control over these assets, ensuring that their benefits stay within the continent. Contrary to outdated beliefs, Africa doesn't need to rely on external support. With its abundant natural resources, fertile land, and dynamic youthful population, Africa has the tools to sustain itself. This idea of self-reliance is quickly becoming the foundation of a new narrative, one defined by empowerment, resilience, and independence. Africa is no longer a quiet observer on the world stage. Its strategic position, youthful energy, and growing economic influence are reshaping the global balance of power. As the dominance of Western nations begins to wane, the world is shifting toward a multipolar system where Africa's voice carries significant weight. For centuries, the rules of global engagement were written in boardrooms far from African shores, often to the detriment of the continent. But now, Africa is insisting on a seat at the table, and it's not asking politely. Its leaders are demanding recognition as equals, forcing the world to reconsider how it views and interacts with the continent. The big question now is how the rest of the world will respond. Will traditional powers adapt to this new reality and treat Africa as a true partner? Or will they resist, clinging to outdated systems that benefit a few at the expense of many? What's clear is that African nations aren't waiting for approval. They're moving forward with confidence and purpose, ready to lead themselves into a new era of sovereignty and strength. For generations, Africa has been known as the world's treasure chest, valued for its gold, diamonds, oil, and other raw materials. But the continent's true wealth? That lies in its people. Millions of young, innovative, and ambitious minds ready to shape the future. With most Africans under the age of 20, the continent is on the brink of an incredible transformation. This new generation isn't satisfied with simply consuming what the world has to offer. They're stepping up to create, innovate, and lead. Entrepreneurs are launching groundbreaking businesses, tech developers are solving local and global problems, and artists are reshaping cultural narratives. Africa is no longer content to play a supporting role in the global economy. Instead of merely exporting raw materials, it's working toward becoming a hub for high-value industries and cutting-edge technology. As education systems improve and more people gain access to resources and opportunities, Africa is transforming into a place where innovation and industry thrive. For centuries, foreign powers thrived by exploiting Africa's resources and fueling divisions among its nations. By keeping African countries fragmented, they ensured the continent couldn't rise as a unified force. But that old strategy is crumbling. Today, more African nations are choosing cooperation over competition, setting aside historical rivalries in favor of shared success. Regional organizations like the African Union, AU, and ECOWAS are leading the charge, building economic partnerships and fostering diplomatic unity. These alliances are making it harder for the world to overlook Africa's influence. With growing unity, African nations are not only standing their ground, but also demanding fair treatment in global trade and politics. This rising influence hasn't gone unnoticed. Major players like China and Russia are racing to strengthen ties with African nations, pouring investments into infrastructure, technology, and resource development. China, for example, has heavily invested in the Horn of Africa, a critical region for global trade. Russia, meanwhile, is deepening its economic and political relationships across the continent. The West, particularly the United States, is paying close attention. Africa's resources, especially the rare minerals essential for advanced technology and defense systems, are too valuable to ignore. China's growing control over these resources poses a challenge to Western economies, prompting US policymakers to rethink their approach to Africa. Initiatives like the Ritual Act aim to reduce reliance on Chinese-controlled minerals, underscoring Africa's central role in the world's future. But Africa's story isn't just about global competition for its resources. It's about a continent reclaiming its narrative. Countries like Ghana are taking bold steps to redefine their relationships with foreign powers. In a historic move, Ghana recently ordered the closure of US military bases within its borders. This wasn't just a political statement. It was a declaration of independence, a way of saying, we can secure our future on our own terms. This decision resonates far beyond Ghana. It symbolizes a broader desire across Africa to move past the exploitative relationships of the past and prioritize sovereignty and self-determination. By reclaiming control over its security, Ghana is setting an example for other nations to follow. The world is waking up to Africa's growing influence. As the continent builds stronger alliances, invests in its people, and takes control of its resources, it's stepping into a new era. Africa isn't just rising, it's redefining what global power looks like. This isn't just about money or politics, it's about respect. It's about a future where African countries are recognized for their talent, innovation, and culture, not just for the gold, oil, and minerals under their feet. For too long, the world has looked at Africa and seen a place to take from rather than a partner to work with. That's the story Ghana is determined to rewrite. Some critics, especially in the West, might call Ghana's latest move risky or reckless. But let's flip the script for a moment. Hasn't Africa been destabilized for generations by outside interference? Colonization, resource exploitation, and endless meddling left scars that still shape the continent today. What Ghana is doing now isn't destabilizing, it's correcting the course. Ghana's leaders, along with others across the continent, are stepping up with bold, unapologetic actions that demand a fresh look at Africa's place in the world. They're rejecting the old narrative of dependency and exploitation, and instead they're building one of collaboration, self-reliance, and equality. This isn't just about Ghana either. Their stance sends a message that resonates across Africa. It's like a spark in dry grass. It could light up a movement where African nations band together, support each other, and declare, we're not just players in someone else's game. We're here to make our own rules. But here's the big question. Will the world listen? Will the West accept this powerful shift and treat Africa as an equal? Or will it cling to the old ways of control, using the same tricks of the past to hold the continent back? This isn't just a win for Ghana. It's a moment of pride for all of Africa. It shows what's possible when a country takes a stand, confident in its vision and bold in its decisions. As more nations step into this new era, Africa's potential to become a global leader grows stronger every day. Ghana's action isn't just a political statement, it's a turning point. It's a sign that Africa is no longer content to ask for a seat at the table. It's pulling up a chair, ready to contribute, negotiate, and thrive on its own terms. What do you think of Africa's bold steps toward reclaiming its destiny? Drop your thoughts below. We'd love to hear from you.